I'm literally doing everything. And I didn't realize how much went into it, until I sat down with another investor. She was like, well, how many people are on your team? I was like, it's just me. I was like, should I have a team?
Thea, we are live.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Yes. And before we started, I said, is there anything off topic? You said no. So there's real talk. We can go anywhere we want, right?
Let's do it. Let's have some real talk.
Awesome. So how are things with you? How's life?
Things are going well. Things are great. I'm healthy. I get to wake up every day and do, what I thought was the impossible, which is not have to report to a 9 to 5 each day. So it's easy to, kind of get caught up in everything and not really pay attention to, the life that you're living, which is something or for me, I really wanted for a long time. So I honestly just feel so blessed and grateful. So I'm good.
Yeah, and you really started this journey back in, what was it, 2021? Yeah, 2020, right?
2020.
Right at the beginning of COVID.
Yes.
Wow. And we've done a podcast before, so if anybody hasn't listened to the first podcast, go back and listen to it. We had a great conversation then.
Yeah.
This is part 2. And I want to sit down and learn how you've evolved over the last few years, because I saw you on stage at Expand. I was there as well too.
Yeah, it was nice seeing you there.
Great energy in that room. Like, I absolutely love it.
Always. Yeah. And you just feed off of that, right? And everyone is just so positive and wants to see everybody win. I love being in rooms and spaces like that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I want to dive into 3 main topics. So if you're comfortable hanging out with me for an hour.
Yes, it's my pleasure.
I want to pick your brain. I actually have, and also too, I want to thank you for doing that Zoom call with me with my young student.
Yeah,
there was 2 of them that I had who want to get into wholesaling. And so what I did for them, I said, look, give me the questions that you want answered, and I will sit down with Thea and I will ask them. Yeah.
So, I love that.
So they better tune into this one. So what I want to do is I want to break it up into 3 segments. So one is for a brand new real estate investor who wants to get into the market. Maybe they don't have any money, they don't have any credit, whatever the situation may be. How do they get started? Then I want to dive into somebody who's been doing it now for a little bit. They're in that, kind of not beginner stage, but in that intermediate stage. And they're trying to say, okay, how do I grow? What do I do next? Yeah. And then for the advanced wholesaler, somebody who's looking to scale, looking to grow their business and maybe not work in their business, but on their business.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think the first question I've got for you is, how do you get started? Because that's always the hard part, because there's so much information out there. There's YouTube, there's Canadian content, there's US content. Can you go across borders, whatever it may be? How do you get started?
Honestly, I would say for most people, they're starting in the right place. Like, for sure, check out the YouTubes and any free content that you can really absorb. Yep. Follow other people on social media who are, doing exactly what you want to do. So if that's wholesaling, definitely follow. Don't be scared to reach out to people who seem to be, kind of further along, because you'd be surprised, especially for someone, whether it's me or whoever else. We were in that same position, we wanted someone, because trust me, I've tried reaching out and they just leave me on red. And I'm like, what the hell? Yeah. So reach out to others, because there's people like me who love that. I will most definitely always respond. And, give you some feedback, put you on the right path at least. But definitely reaching out, absorbing the free content, listening to podcasts, reading books, going to networking events. There's always, an event for real estate within the GTA, even if you have to drive a bit. If it's important to you, you want to be around the right people and in the right room. So go out to those events and learn, because a lot of times they're giving you a lot of free information. There's people there there, who you can pick their brains. And it comes down to relationships, right? That's what this business is about. So you go there, you hit it off with someone, you're like, oh my God, you're awesome. We should totally do something together. Let's create some synergy. And then boom, before you know it, this person's already done maybe 3-4 deals. And you're like, I'm brand new, but I'm hungry. And then, before you know it, you have some kind of a collaboration. So to get started, be active, get out there, and don't be shy to reach out to those who are further along.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. Your network is your net worth.
Literally.
Put yourself in those rooms, because when you start hanging out with people that are like-minded, they can't help but rub off on you. That's just so the name of the game. That's how it works. And if, my mom always said this, and we've all heard this, is that, show me your 5 friends and I'll show you who you are. So you got to put yourself in the right room. You got to become a sponge. Like I remember when I first started, that's what I did. I just became this sponge.
Yes.
And I was just writing things down and all these acronyms. I'm like, I don't even know what this acronym means. Somebody just said something. But the more you put yourself in it, the more that you learn, the more that you grow.
Absolutely.
And then before you know it, 5 years has gone by and you're like, hey, you want to be on a podcast?
Yeah.
and then now people want to learn from you.
Exactly. And speaking of like taking down these notes, I came across a book that I had started in like 2020, just a little notebook. And I was literally just absorbing all these things. I was like, burr. And I had like everything written out. It was like APS, like all the little verbiage that I now am like super accustomed to, but was like German to me before. So absolutely be a sponge and, just be tenacious. And that's what you need. If you're just going to kind of coast and do a little here, do a little there, this isn't going to be for you.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So now they've done all that. How long should that take? Is that like a month? Is it 3 months before they can actually kind of dive right into it?
I mean, I would say day one, like just start, you're going to start developing little tools that you can use along the way. And as you develop that tool, what better way than to actually use the tool? So if someone was like, hey, you should go on Kijiji, and this is, how you start finding, properties off market, you should probably start using that Kijiji tool immediately and start brushing up. And as you start, as you start moving forward, you'll see you'll have other questions, right? And then boom, maybe you'll reach out to Thia and be like, hey, I'm here. This makes no sense. And now you have the answer to move forward. So it really is, as you learn, just start implementing. There's no time frame. I think if I was to say wait 6 months, you might come across a pretty juicy lead in month 2. Granted, you don't know what to do with it, but if you reached out to me, would I know what to do with it? Probably. Could we both eat on that deal? Probably. Are you going to learn something along the way? Probably. Are you going to feel more confident the next time you have this deal because we've just gone through the process? Probably. Right? So just take action.
That is such a good point. When I look back at when I first started, that was the same thing as well, too, is that I was just taking action and I was learning. But because I was in those rooms, I then knew and met people that had way deeper pockets than I did at the time.
Right.
That I could then now either partner with them or do a wholesale deal with them. 'Cause I did wholesaling in the beginning as well too.
Yeah.
And while I was growing my database and my buyers list, they weren't any good because they didn't trust me yet.
Right.
I hadn't done a deal yet. Nobody believed in me yet.
Yeah.
But I kept showing them, hey, look, these are here is a deal. Here's another deal.
That matters.
And then what I used to do is I'd say available. Not available. Now, nobody in my network bought it, but I was able to give it to another investor who I can do this deal. Right. And then eventually I started to partner with them on it. And I wasn't getting a whole lot off of it,
right?
But I was getting some of it. And I was learning. And I think that's the most important piece
that
you
is.
just touched on.
I was just going to say, you said you weren't getting a lot, maybe in the monetary section, but as far as the knowledge base, right? Really, it's just going through the process even once. And you're like, this makes sense, and it's really confidence. Once you have that confidence, it really exudes in everything else that you do. And it attracts. So you'll start finding better opportunities. You'll know what to do with these better opportunities. But if you don't, have the database or the buyers just yet, all is not, lost. It really just comes down to having that network. And that's why it's important to connect with people. And like you said, partner and get 50-50 because you deserve 50-50. You found that deal, you deserve it. And the person whose buyer's list that you are utilizing to kind of, get rid of this opportunity or sell it, they'll be happy with 50-50 because they spent no money as far as marketing to go into the opportunity. So, it really is a true win-win. And I'm just stressing you deserve 50%, regardless if you are aware or familiar with the process or not.
Right. And that's a good point because sometimes people don't realize that because you're not bringing the money, they think that that's the most important piece of the deal. And it's not.
So, Gary, I'm wondering, how many deals have you done without the actual deal itself?
Yeah, none.
And you probably have a ton of money. You have investors, you have folks.
Yeah.
But without the main component, it's a stalemate.
Right.
So we need to understand how important and valuable wholesalers are in finding those opportunities. And most importantly, wholesalers, you need to know your value because you're bringing the main thing every single investor needs in order to move forward.
100%. That reminds me of a great book by Stephen Arnio, Money, People, Deal.
Yes.
Go and read that book because you'll realize that the money is not the most important piece, it's the deal.
It really is the deal.
And if you have if you have 2/3, then the other third will come. So go read that book. All right. Now let's walk through doing a deal because now they've watched the YouTube videos. Now they've come into the networking event. How do you kind of put that together, and how long does it sometimes take, or how long did it take you before you actually got your first deal? Because I think they're like, well, what contracts do I use, or how do I sell it?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. For me, it took 6 months to get my first one done, and it's not the first deal that I tied up. It's not for lack of effort. It's just sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles, but it takes time. So once you've found the opportunity, you need to then make sure it really is an actual opportunity. You're speaking with the seller. You're getting all of the property details, all of the financials. And don't be scared to ask for all this information. You're not buying a pair of shoes or a concert ticket. Like most people only buy a house once in their life. So, they'll completely understand that you have all of these questions. You're going to run your numbers. If they make sense, you're like, perfect. I think I might want to put an offer as far as, cash flow or whatever metrics you're looking at. Mm-hmm.
Then let's stop there. So running your numbers. Now, how are you running your numbers? Are you doing a CMA, comparable market analysis? And how do they do that? Yeah,
so for me and my team, initially what we're doing is just gathering all the financials from the sellers. So what are you paying for property tax, insurance, hydro, the entire shebang, whatever they're paying for, we need those numbers. And we're simply plugging that into our spreadsheet that someone made for me. You can also use a platform like DealCheck. Mm-hmm. We just want to see, is this thing cash flowing? What are we looking at? And if there is some cash flow or some potential, then I'm going to go ahead and look at the recently sold comparables because I don't want to, bother my realtor friend to go ahead and pull comparables on a property that's losing $3,000. Like, what are we going to do with it, right? So that's kind of the chain of events for us.
Okay, and now it's easier to do comparables because back in the days, they didn't have House Sigma, didn't have anything like that. You had to actually go to a realtor. So it's a lot easier now to do that.
And I think you still do because you'll be surprised. Not all of the sold items or properties are on House Sigma. Mm-hmm. So you might want to use House Sigma as, a quick way to just reference and kind of see, especially because wholesaling is about speed, especially if you're using free platforms where everyone else can see the deal like Kijiji, you want to be quick. So you might want to use that initially, but you'll always want to back it up with, speaking with a professional, not just for the comps, but about the area. Is it A, B, C? Like, the realtor in that area will know everything that you need to know and then use as leverage when you start, negotiating that purchase
So
price.
now you reach out to a realtor. How is there a compensation? Is she becomes part of your power team? How do you make that work?
There's so many different ways to structure it, but I have a few who are just on the power team. I have some that prefer the the pay structure. So each time they pull a comp for us, not just more so per property, we'll, maybe pay them 20 to 25 bucks. I personally love that model because sometimes in this line of business, you might tell a realtor, listen, if I'm not able to, come to an agreement with the seller on a purchase price, I'm going to refer you. But the seller, it's not lost on them that there are realtors who can help sell their houses, and they went off market for a reason. So sometimes it then becomes a bit challenging to find a way to really create that win-win and make sure they're able to get something, out of it that way. So for me, I don't mind paying for comps, but it really is whatever, you structure with that individual. I like
that. That's a great idea. So what you're saying is then you have a realtor on your team, you pay them $25 for them to do that analysis for you. It may not even go anywhere because now that analysis says, well, you know what, that deal is no good. But now that realtor is like, okay, well, I did it. I got some money.
Yeah.
But then now maybe it does go somewhere, but it doesn't go anywhere. And now you're like, hey, look, I've got this deal here. Can you list it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and so now
exactly.
you're creating this win-win.
And that is the best case scenario, and I've only been able to really pull that off, I would say 2 or 3 times. Because again, most people know they can go to a realtor. But, I'll let them know this realtor is phenomenal. They're great at what they do, give them some good feedback. And, again, they've gone ahead and listed the property. I'm like, great. And then you can also, have a conversation with the realtor and create some kind of kickback for yourself,
that. Yeah.
And you can do that because, again, it's about creating that win-win. So
brilliant.
Lots of ways to win that.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Okay, so now you find this deal, you do your analysis, you sit down now with the seller, potential seller.
Yes.
Person wants to get rid of their home. How does that conversation go? You've obviously done a lot of those conversations. What are some of the key things that somebody who's doing it is brand new to make sure, hey, you got to say these points, or you don't want to be too aggressive, or right?
You just want to focus on the data.
Okay.
The data. He can't argue with the data, or she can't argue with the data. You can't argue with the data. It is what it is. Sometimes they're out to lunch and they're like, I want 500. I'm like, but nothing sold for more than 3. So not sure where, and I'll ask them, how did you come to this price point? And if they're like, well, my neighbor's house down there sold for X, Y, and Z, I'll go and pull it up with them on the phone even, because if it was on realtor.ca, you can most likely find the listing on House Sigma, even if it's sold. And you're like, wow, they got marble. Did you? No marble in yours. Okay. Wow, they have 3 extra bedrooms. You just have 2. Okay. And I just start going through it with them. And I'm like, and this is why, I'm not here to, really just kind of gouge you, but it needs to make sense. And I'm truly always trying to create that win-win scenario. So I just bring the facts. If the property isn't cash flowing, hey, it's not cash flowing because it's under rented. But, if we're able to get a unit vacant, we can likely pay a bit more. If not, this is kind of where we are because we need to, at least have the property cover itself. So a lot of it is just logic and reason, and then the facts being your recently sold comparables.
Okay. Where are you finding these deals? I think I missed a step in there, but where are you finding them? How are you advertising? That's really important as well. Google
ads is kind of what we're doing right now.
Okay.
I still have members on my team who are looking on Kijiji. We just signed a deal a few days ago, came off of Kijiji. So,
okay.
They're still there.
And so Google ads is what now? Is it landing on a website that you've got?
Yeah, you can create a landing page or have someone create a landing page for you. So it'll take them essentially right to that landing page. They'll fill out their details. And then you'll get an email with however you structured it. If you're like, you want to know, is it a duplex, single family, best number to contact, the property address, of course, and those kind of things. Yeah.
Right. And then all you did was just kind of copy somebody else's website. Not
yes.
word for word, but you're like, hey, I like this. This makes sense. I'll put it on there.
And they're doing well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then create your own website. And you can create a website for so cheap nowadays.
It's all
AI.
they're already done, and you just pop in your logo, and it's super easy. Nothing like it used to be for sure.
And now you look professional.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you get a landing page. Emails are coming in, phone numbers are coming in, and you're calling them. Okay, cool. So now you get to them. Now you're sitting down, you're having that conversation with them. Now they say, okay, Thia, or whoever it is, I want to use your services. What is next? What forms are you using?
Oh, we're going to use the standard ORIA forms, really. Okay. So I think it's Form 100.
Yep.
Your APS. That's going to be your main document. And then if all goes well, then you move on to the assignment agreement. That's our favorite as wholesalers, because that means you're getting paid today. Well, not today, but when the deal closes. And then you will be using your notice to fulfill conditions once you've received the assignee's deposit in your lawyer's trust account.
Okay, so essentially now you're purchasing the property, or saying that you're purchasing the property with an assignment
That's right.
clause, and that assignment clause is in Schedule A, correct?
That's right.
Okay, got it. And then you're obviously putting your name down. You're putting their name down. Now, when you put your name, is it your name and or assignee?
You could.
Okay.
I was doing that in the beginning. Now I have a corp, so I just use corp. Homeowner help. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So which now then allows you to be able to assign it, and now you're being completely transparent with them as well.
Yep.
Okay. So they know.
Not when I entered, but once it's assigned. And once I'm entering into the agreement, I don't mention any word of what, like, I'm going to sign your deal. I might not. And it's not to be sneaky or, not be transparent, but I really don't know what I'm going to do with this deal. I have no idea. Right. What if they're open to an agreement for sale and I don't have to pay for this building? I'm probably going to keep it, Gary.
Right.
So I don't want to open a can of worms that isn't really necessary and scare off the seller. But the moment I'm going to go ahead and assign it, you have to let them know. Yep. You can't hide it. They will see,
okay.
That you're going to assign this deal on closing.
Yep.
And they're usually okay with it because they've gotten the price, that they've requested. And in the event that, you were making, let's say, 6 figures on this deal and you didn't want the seller to know, you can always have a conversation with your lawyer because there is a way that you can kind of, withhold that.
Got it. Okay, perfect. And do you see them cracking down on wholesalers at all? Because, there was a time when wholesalers were making more than realtors.
Right.
And I remember one of my agents like, Carrie, I'm just going to go be a wholesaler.
Right.
Right. And that was when the market was just taking off.
Yeah.
Right. Things have shifted.
They have.
Big time.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Definitely not what it was, before. Still, of course, opportunity there. But there's been a big shift, especially when the interest rates started increasing.
Yep.
The buyers went missing. We're like, we have this 6-year VTB. Like, what do you mean nobody wants this? This is crazy. But everyone was nervous, right? They didn't know. Is it going to keep going up? Are we going to get a rate drop? So that definitely created, some strain on the business. And at that moment, I was like, you really can't just have one stream of income. It was in that moment that a light bulb went off. And then my partner and I, created Stellar Stays, which is a short-term, mid-term rental management company, which is doing quite well. I then started, kind of branching out because people weren't buying deals the same. And even today, people are still buying deals, but it's not what it was. You'll see a lot of emails coming in with price drops, price reductions, and those type of things. But I still think wholesaling in this space is great for those who are, I think at any stage, whether you're just coming in, you're seasoned, everyone should know how to complete an assignment agreement, and that transaction. Otherwise, you're leaving money on the table. Because there's going to be a time in your career where you're like, I have 3 opportunities and you can't really focus on all 3, right? Maybe they're big projects. But instead of just letting one of them go or 2 of them go, you can assign them because you understand how to complete that transaction. So again, everyone at every stage in their real estate investing career should understand how to complete that.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. And then so Stellar Stays, so that obviously showed you that you've got to have different streams of income.
You have to.
I learned a lot too during COVID because I actually thought I had a recession-proof business.
Right.
I just worked with 90% of my business was real estate investors.
Right.
And then all of a sudden when those interest rates went up, I'm like, oh, I don't have a recession-proof business.
Yeah.
And I had to pivot. I had to pivot fast. And I think for any business owner, entrepreneur, you got to know how to adapt and pivot quick, and which is what you did.
Yeah, you have to. And you'll start to feel the pressure, because you're like, oh my goodness, maybe that's 3 deals that went out that weren't assigned, whatever that is. And you're like, this is crazy. I have to do something. But I've always been like that. I am truly a problem solver. So, when my back's against the wall, I think is when I perform the best. And that's just kind of been my story.
Yeah. When your back's against the wall, you really get to see who you are.
Oh, for sure.
And what you're made of.
Yeah, I always come out like Rocky at the top. So I'm like, this is great. This is great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else for beginning wholesalers that we haven't covered before we move on?
No, I think we've touched on pretty much everything. Just when you're getting started, I really want to caution people, because I've seen so many people do it. They're like, I want to wholesale. And then they see what really goes into the wholesaling and they're like, okay, you know what? Maybe I just want to like burr something. And I'm like, no, that's a lot of work too.
Right.
And now you have to take care of investors' money. So there's always layers, to no matter what strategy you're in. But I would say if you're not willing to really go all in on it, then you might want to try something else.
Yeah. And then just to wrap it up with you saying that, you've always been a good problem solver. The bigger the problem, the more you get paid. And you're just adding more skills to your tool belt.
Exactly.
That's a really important takeaway there. So
it really is. And then for the new wholesalers coming in, you're coming in completely green, but by the time you have, put in a few months, you've learned new things like how to really negotiate a VTB, maybe how to introduce an agreement for sale, like these type of tools that are really beneficial for you. And, people look at this wholesaling strategy like, oh, it's kind of like this like bottom thing you come in. But this is where you're learning all of the important tools and strategies. And now you have them in your tool belt to not only bring opportunities for yourself, but other people. It's an amazing thing, like the 9-unit building, right? Mm-hmm. That we have that really came from our wholesale stream. And we didn't know whether or not we were going to keep it. But, after we were able to, knock $130K off the price point and understanding it's a major market, we were like, we're definitely.
I want to dive into that, but I'm going to leave that one a little bit later on.
Yeah.
So let's move on to building momentum. And for somebody now who's done a few deals, they've got it under their belt, they're like, okay, how do I grow? How do I move this forward? So what are some of the tools and maybe CRMs or whatever it is? What are things that they need to have in their tool belt to really kind of take their business to the next level?
You definitely need, your CRM. You need a way to run your numbers, as I was mentioning before, so you can see how the property's performing, whether that's a spreadsheet you have someone make for you or using, the platform like Deal Check. You will most definitely need a power team. You will need the people as you are building. You cannot truly do it by yourself. So you'll need someone to run those ads for you. Maybe you have someone, answering the phones for you. Maybe you're answering the phones in the beginning. You'll need a lawyer who's, knowledgeable. You'll need to have someone who can take some photos for you. You'll need to have all these pieces in play. And it sounds like a lot, but I promise if you go out to even just a couple real estate, meetups or functions, you'll be able to find people in different areas who are willing to help out and maybe take some photos for you for like $50 an hour. They won't be there for more than, the hour or 2 hours. So it's really, you don't have to put a ton of capital into kind of getting it done.
Right. So you're saying that you can now take off some of those multiple hats?
Yes, you can.
Because in the beginning, it is tough.
It is so
tough
hard.
Because you have to wear multiple hats.
Yeah.
Like you're in sales, you're in IT, you're doing absolutely
Literally
everything. And then you realize what you enjoy doing, what you're good at, and then you can start to slowly bring people into different industry experts and partners.
Exactly.
Because in the beginning, you don't have the money to do it all. So you've got to do it all yourself. And then you can slowly start to outsource some of that. The things that you're doing.
For sure. And that was me in the beginning. I was going to go take the photos. I'm driving on down, taking the photos. I'm filling out the agreements. I'm putting the buyer's package together. Yeah. And that is just not my strong suit. I'm so happy I don't have to do that anymore. Yeah. I'm doing dispo. So I'm selling the deal. I'm doing the assignment. I'm literally doing everything. And I didn't realize how much went into it, until I sat down with another investor. She was like, well, how many people are on your team? I was like, it's just me.
Right.
Should I have a team?
You're right.
But once you realize, oh my gosh, I can be so much more efficient and do more faster as you start adding people. But it's okay to be a one-man show in the beginning, but as you grow, you will need to start adding some key players.
How big is your team right now?
My team is still pretty small. We have about six people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to dive into that a little bit. So you got to have that power team. But what about your CRM? Is there a CRM that you're using? Is there one that you like or prefer?
Yeah.
And how important is a CRM?
CRM is very, very important. You won't be able to keep track of your deals, the lead flow, like everything.
What is a CRM?
CRM is where you're going to store all of your potential leads, and it's essentially, for folks who have never heard of a CRM before, when you call, let's say, Rogers, right? And they're able to punch your name in their database. It really is just a database. And it keeps track of every conversation that you have had. And that's how you need to treat your CRM in your database. Every time you talk to this client, you need to pull up their file in this database and add the note. I spoke to the seller agreed to 150K purchase price.
Yep.
You want to have everything because sometimes they go ghost.
Yep.
Or for whatever reason, you can't reach them. And then 5 months down the road, you don't want to be like, well, what were we talking about again? That's just not in your favor versus I'm great. We were able to reconnect. The last time we had chatted, this is kind of where we were. And, it just adds another layer of professionalism. But a CRM is where you're going to store all of your contacts, your leads. That's how you're going to follow up on everything. And it's going to, give you some KPIs. Like, where am I getting, most of my phone calls from? Is it coming from the website? Is it coming from Kijiji? And then that way you can start to kind of tweak your business to what's more, beneficial for you and what's working.
Yeah. CRMs are so important. With a customer relationship manager or client relationship manager.
Yeah.
And I remember in the beginning, I used an Excel spreadsheet.
Me too.
Then we found MailChimp. And then we started using MailChimp.
Yeah.
And then today we use Follow Up Boss, a much more robust, much more sophisticated CRM, because now my whole entire team can use it. And then we can move clients from realtor to realtor, or the notes are in there. Everything we need to know about all of our clients are in there. What events they've come to, everything. Absolutely everything. And when you have something like that, your clients inside out. You know what homes they've purchased. Just absolutely everything. And so then now and you can put automation into it. And so then now you build this great relationship with everybody in your database. And that is probably, I would say, one of the most important things that I implemented in the beginning. Even though, in the beginning, I didn't spend a whole lot of money, but as I grew, I was like, I need to spend more money in this particular part of my business.
No, for sure. You won't last too long without a CRM. Like, you can really only use your spreadsheet for so long, but then your business is growing beyond what the spreadsheet's capability is. So for us, we were using Pipedrive in the beginning.
Yep.
It was just very user friendly. I'm not tech savvy at all, so I was like, if my great grandma can do it, then this is the one I need.
Yeah.
And we've recently switched over to Go High Level because it has some of those automations in there and those kind of things.
What other tools are you using, or would you recommend that's really important? So you've got
for the business?
Yeah, so you got your CRM, you've got your different teams that you have. What other ones are good?
Yeah, I love Deal Check. I love it. So I love the fact that you can save whatever you've kind of put the numbers, like plugged your numbers in, you've analyzed. You can then use like a compare and copy feature. Pretty neat. Definitely want to have that. As we mentioned, CRM, you definitely want to create a what is that? The House Sigma, is it Zolu? Like all those little free accounts where you can pull property data. You want to make sure you have access to as much of those details or much of those information as you can.
Okay. So now you also mentioned that you've got a team. You got a team of 6. What are their different roles? Like, so let's say now I am a solo wholesaler. Now I'm looking to grow. what would be maybe people that I would want on my team?
Yeah, you'd want a VA, so a virtual assistant.
Okay.
And you can, use sites like, I think it's Online Jobs PH. You can get a VA from the Philippines.
Okay.
Which is where I had gotten mine.
Yeah.
And she's
so cost
lovely.
effective over there too.
Very.
What is it, like $5 an hour? I've heard $4 an hour.
Yeah, I think I was paying her $4.20. What are we at now? I think she's at like $4.50 now.
Yeah.
$4.50 an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then she is doing what now? Making the phone calls? What is her specific
Yeah,
role?
so she does some like free platform scraping for us. So we gave her some training so she knows what to look for.
Sorry, what does that mean? Platform scraping.
Sorry. Scraping. So if we're looking on Kijiji,
Yeah.
I call that scraping for deals. We're scraping Kijiji, Facebook, any other for sale by homeowner type of websites. She understands how to run the numbers and, is this an opportunity? Is it not? So those are the things that she's looking for
Really?
for
That's
us.
interesting.
Yeah. We also...
So then when you're putting the ad out, and what VA site are you going to, or how are
that's
you
the
finding
online jobs .ph.
Okay.
And then it has, all their credentials. You see what jobs they've had before. So for me, of course, English is very, very important because you don't want someone to pick up the phone and they have a thick accent. Mm-hmm. And I mean, my mom's was from the island, so she had a very thick accent. But when we're thinking about, someone seeing an ad online about buying a house, people are already like, is this legit?
Right.
And now there's this accent. They're like, oh, heck no, this isn't, right? So we want them to feel comfortable. We want them to understand that this is a legitimate business. So that's like key for me. Them having, past experience working for other like U.S. companies in a sales or customer service type role is what I look for as well.
What are you specifically looking for, though, when it comes to their skill sets? Because you said they're a scraper.
Yeah, well, that's just one of the things that that
but
she does.
you're not looking for a wholesale scraper.
So it'd be like, easily able to learn, new tasks easily.
Okay.
But, there's data entry. So, data entry, ability to, type. Like just things like that.
Okay, so you're also you're finding somebody who has certain skill sets, and then you're training them specifically on what you're looking for.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So now, you've interviewed them and you say, look, here's what I need you to do. I need you to be able to go out, take a look on Kijiji or wherever it is that they're looking, and this is what we're looking for deals. So you're actually training them.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
I'm giving them some training.
Okay.
So as long as they have customer service experience, then that is key for us, right? English is good, customer service, familiar with, using a computer. It's pretty straightforward, right? And then it's just a matter of giving them some training videos, and then they have a rough idea of what we're looking for.
What would you say are the top 3 things, though, when you say, hey, when you go out and start looking for a deal for us, here are 3 things we need you to look at?
Yeah, for sure. We want to look at, if we're looking at multis, anything that is $100K a door or less, that's interesting to us. We want to see it.
Yep.
If we're looking at single families, I gave them my rule of thumb, which is for every $100,000 in a purchase price, you can assume the mortgage is going to be $500. That just quickly helps us dispel deals that will make sense, won't make sense. That's what she's looking for. And she's also looking for in major cities. So we've given her some targets, and this is kind of, where she's kind of playing and looking for some opportunities for us. And it's not perfect. Yep. Sometimes we'll get stuff and we're like, what the heck is this? Right. But hey, sometimes
but at least they're coming in and your team now can analyze these deals and say, hey, look, we need you to tighten up on this.
Feedback, exactly.
Okay, got it. Okay, so you got a VA. Who else do you have on your team?
So we have a couple VAs. One just answers, phones for our inbound calls. And then we have my partner, Kayla. She's doing our dispo. And
your disposition.
So selling the deals once you have them. Me and her will kind of go back and forth, but for the most part, she'll kind of handle the disposition and selling the deals, which is very, very important, guys. You need to know every single thing about this deal. Otherwise, when the investors are like, hey, how old's the roof? And you're like, I'm not sure.
Right.
Not good. So you want someone who's familiar with the deal. Kayla is her name. She also will package, so create our marketing material, which is helpful. And then we have someone who kind of helps do that as well. And we're kind of training them, because if you're building the buyer's package and the marketing material, you're pretty much an expert on the deal. You know what you've put in there. You know the details of the property, and that's what's important.
Got it. And so then now they package that up. That goes up to social media, on Instagram, on Facebook. Then it goes out to your newsletter, your buyer's list. All right. And then now if you're going to events like you did at Expand, you're on stage, and now you're also telling everybody in a room,
exactly.
Hey, look, I'm actually working on a particular deal. Now let's dive into that 9-unit deal, because I want to break that down and how, because that took you some time, and I think you're still working on it.
Yes, we're almost there. We are almost there. I see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So it is great.
Okay, cool. So how did you come across this deal? Did this come in from the VA? Walk us through the cycle.
It actually came from another member on our team. He had recently joined our team too, just last year.
Yep.
And he was on Kijiji, kind of scraping away, checking the rental side, the for sale side, just kind of going through both. But he stumbled across this on the renter side. They were looking to rent out 2 units, or their 2-bedroom. And he then, approached and sent a message saying, hey, I know this is, you're looking to kind of rent your unit, but I'm an investor looking to purchase some properties in the area. Your building kind of fits our buy box as far as looks. Is this something you would kind of consider? Are you okay with jumping on a call to discuss? And they were like, yes, we would love to discuss this. We weren't thinking about selling, but let's see. And I find that that's what most people do, because as human beings, we're curious, right? We want to know. Right. If I'm like, Gary, I'll buy your whole studio, you might be like, well, for how much, right?
All right.
So that's the thing. And once you get them on the phone, now you have their ear, and now it's just really building that relationship and getting across to them that, you're not here to waste their time. You're a serious investor. This is what you do every single day, and I'm very interested, and I love your building. Let's kind of, discuss more about that.
Right. Okay.
And that's what we did. Yeah.
Right. And so you went back and forth, and eventually you guys were able to get a deal.
Eventually, it took 10 months.
Wow.
Of negotiations. They didn't want to have any phone calls. So it was all through WhatsApp messengers. Yay, me. I was like, please pick up the phone.
Right.
So that was a challenge in itself, because you can't be as personable as you would over the phone and really build that rapport. And it's just, just flat text.
Right.
So that's what we did. They were at $900,000 for the building, which for the area is fair. But the wholesaler in me, it's just in my bones. I was like, I think I can get this for a better price point. I find people will ask for a certain price, but they're willing to accept less, is kind of what I say. So we went back and forth for a few months, and then we were chipping away at the price. And finally, we were at about, I said 760, and they were like, no, 780. And I just finished reading Never Split the Difference for the second time. So I was like, no, I'm not splitting the difference, right? And they're like, okay, no, we're not selling. And I was like, oh no, what did I do? I should have split the difference.
Right.
So I let, about a month go by, reached back out. I was like, hey, I still love your building, still very interested. I'm a serious investor. I, reran my numbers, and I think I can make this work. And I think we had just had a rate drop. I was like, with the new rates, I think I can make this work. Let's go back to the table. How do you feel about 770?
Right.
They agreed at the 770. And then it took another couple months to even get pen to paper, because what they wanted was just like a verbal, not even verbal, because I can't even, get on a call with them, but essentially just go do your due diligence, and if you don't like it, then no problem.
Right.
Like, that's not how it works. I need contractual rights. Like, what if I start spending money on due diligence and you decide you don't want to sell your building anymore? Just we can't have that. So that took another month or two. And then we finally got pen to paper in October. And we just lifted conditions about a week or two ago.
So you're firm now.
We are firm.
All right, congrats.
We are basically fully funded.
Yep.
So we are excited to, introduce this 9-unit building at $85K a door in Edmonton. It is a phenomenal opportunity. The inspection checked out amazing. Our appraisal went great.
Yep.
And we intend to double the building in a year. And head off to CMHC.
Awesome. All right. So very, very cool, and congratulations on putting that together.
Appreciate
and that comes with a lot of hard work, and that comes with experience and time, and and negotiation skills as well too.
For sure.
Let's move on to the last segment here, which is how do you optimize now, and how do you scale to that next level? Because you got a lot going on now. How do you do that? What's next? Do you have mentors that you reach out to, or that's taking a look at your business? What if somebody's at your level? What do they do next?
I mean, are we talking about my wholesaling business? I feel like for me, because I've been wholesaling for quite some time, it's not as interesting to me as it was in the beginning. And I feel like I'm just growing and evolving so much. It's like, yes, I'm the wholesale queen, but I'm also so much more than that. I've had the opportunity to become an author. I do coaching and mentoring. I'm on stages. I'm growing my portfolio. So I think, if you're just looking to grow, it really comes down to having a mentor. So I'm a part of Wealth Genius. I really love everything Alfonso's doing over there. I love watching Alfonso on stage. He's just captivating, so that's a huge mentor for me. And I think it comes down to being around the people who are constantly growing.
Right.
And if you have, your high school friends, like those are cool. I still have those, but it doesn't hit the same when you are in rooms with the people who are purchasing these buildings, and you're like, what? I never thought I'd be able to buy a building, coming from where I come from, but being in a room like the rooms that I'm in now, I'm like, it's just a 9-unit, like it's not even that crazy,
right?
And I love that, because I wouldn't have been saying that 5 years ago. I'd be like, Thea, there's no way.
Right.
There's no way.
It's just a 9-unit building.
Yeah, just a 9-unit,
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, what? But that's investors, I'll be at these, events, and people are like, oh yeah, I only have like 35 units. It's not. I'm like, what? Like, only here would that be downplayed, outside everyone's like, oh my gosh, and just in awe. But I love that, because it challenges me to be better, be bigger. And I mean, I feel like I'm just getting started. I have 5 years in the game, but that's nothing compared to most.
I love that, and I'm glad that you mentioned all of that, because it's so true.
Yeah.
Because what ends up happening is as you start your business, you're just a wholesaler.
Yeah.
Right? And you're just trying to learn. And then all of a sudden you realize that you can't wear all of these hats, because you're going to drown, because you're working too much in your business.
That's right.
You got to work on your business. And then also too, what you just recently said is that, well, I'm more than just a wholesaler. And so now you're starting to elevate yourself and stuff. And now you have the right people in place that you can trust, and they're building a business within your business. And they do it so well now that you probably couldn't even do it as good as they do, because you've also inspired them, and you've taught them how they can also change their lives as well too. And so now you're elevating yourself.
Yes.
And I think this is where I really want to go with this, is that where you start, you gotta see the vision of where you're trying to go.
Absolutely.
And this is where now I'll ask this: do you whiteboard? What does that look like for you, where you're saying, okay, where do I want to be 5 years from now? How do you do that to be able to look at yourself in greater light?
Yeah, that's exactly what me and my partner do. We have whiteboards and we have everything kind of broken down on where we want to be in the next 5. And for me, if you'd asked me this when we had first sat down, I'd been like, I don't know, maybe like 200 doors. Like I would have just said a number. I don't know. Right. But I've had time to really think about what I want to do with my life, what direction, do I want it to go? How do I want to be involved in real estate and investing? And for me, I think my exit is really, getting into the mortgage notes in the U.S., like buying, flipping, which is pretty similar to wholesaling real estate, but also buying these mortgage notes, raising capital, and purchasing and holding on to them, because it really is very passive. There's like a financing company who will service the note and make sure your borrower is paying the mortgage every single month. They document it. It's perfect. And you just wait for the money to hit your account every single month. And I'm like, that is more in line with what I want to do. I really just want to relax. I want to have that passive income. So my partner and I are currently working on building, right, that aspect of our note buying and flipping business.
So creating more passive income.
Absolutely.
And then also probably too focusing on other things that you enjoy doing, and probably within some form of business that you want to do, because you never know, like, hey, look, I built this business over here. What else can I build?
Exactly. And we're looking at some opportunities, even like care homes. Like I have this really unique opportunity within the GTA where, they're selling essentially a church, and the church can support a care home. So have I built a care home? No. But what I want listeners to understand is, am I in a network of people who build care homes and other things? Yes. Would I pass up on this opportunity because I've never personally built a care home? No. I'm going to bring the opportunity to the professionals. And guess what? I get a first row seat at exactly how, everything that goes into, getting your paperwork, the renderings, like everything that goes into building a care home.
Right.
And for me, I, as we talked about earlier, it's a bit about, yes, I'm going to get some capital from, being a part of this venture, but it's the knowledge piece. Like this is a completely uncharted territory for me. So I'm excited to, again, continue to grow, evolve, and build something. I really want to build something and be able to, drive by and be like, hey, Amari, that's my son. Mommy built this. Like this is ours,
Right.
There's no greater feeling.
So then, based on what you're saying, do you see yourself replacing you with the wholesale business to then be able to move out of it to do something different? Is that kind of the vision?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I came, seen, and conquered.
Yeah.
And I'm just like ready for the next phase.
Okay.
And
So the
that's fun.
wholesale business will continue to keep going.
It'll keep doing its thing.
Right. And then you might maybe even move into it from time to time, but maybe have somebody there that really is the one who runs it.
Yeah. if I never had to touch it again, I would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I've done the things, and there's just so much more that I want to focus my attention on and really build, like the other business in the US, because that's more in line with where my goals are.
Right.
And it's new. So I'm like, let's do it. And then teach other investors about it, because most people want this passive, kind of venture, but they really only know about maybe private lending. They don't know that you can buy, mortgage notes in the U.S. with a ton of equity in them, and there's first loans or first position, second position, non-paying or non-performing and performing notes. It's an entire new universe is what it feels like, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know what? It's so much fun when you build your business to then move into something completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just share with you, I'm looking at like hotels and stuff now, and like just something like, exciting. I don't think I can even do this, but I'm like, but now all of a sudden I'm like, hey, maybe I can.
You can.
And it's so intriguing to see what you can do if you decide to put your mind to it. And I think this is why this segment of this particular talk is so important, because it is about believing in yourself. It is about having the right mindset and being in the right room, because you can't do that. I've never met a monk that's successful. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you have to surround yourself with the right people.
You have to.
What's one of the biggest problems that you had to overcome, and how did you do it?
I think the biggest problem for me was, prioritizing what I thought might have been important at the time. And then you become easily distracted, right? And
that phone.
And it's the phone. They come, distractions could be your phone, family, friends. It can come in so many different forms. And because I'm really connected to the people in my life, that was a real challenge for me. I had to really step aside and have conversations that were a bit uncomfortable because, for some it felt like I'm maybe, ditching them but it's more so I need to get my life together. I have big goals, big plans, and I only have right now to kind of get it done. So for me, that was a huge obstacle. And I know other people might be listening and be like, yeah, my friend just asked me to go out on the weekend, but I should be, maybe doing something to build your business. Take the time and build your business because you'll have all the time later, and often those friends who are like clubbing, they'll still be doing that in the next 10. So anytime you're ready to pop in and catch up, you'll have the opportunity to.
So, such a good point. When I was starting Smart Home Choice from 2010 to 2015, I knew nothing what was on TV, no Netflix, because I didn't have time because I was so focused on building my business and getting out of the golden handcuffs of that 9 to 5 because and I used that disgust as jet fuel.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this and you're in a situation where you're not happy with where you are, you can change whenever you're ready to change. Yes. But nobody can decide except you.
That is it. It's just us. We're truly the only ones who can hold ourselves back. We might make excuses and be like, oh, we didn't achieve our goals because of, but I mean, if you really are going to be honest with yourself, it comes down to you. Life is going to life. We're all going to have trials and tribulations. You're going to wake up some days and be like, I'm over this. Why didn't I just get a 9 to 5? I still have those days where I'm just like, oh my God, this is so hard, but it's the determination. It's not even the motivation. It's, I have to do this because this is what I want. I will not be happy in a 9 to 5, and I still have to feed my son. So for me, it's every day is do or die is what it feels like,
Yeah, for sure. How did you overcome the fear of, being on stage?
Oh my goodness. It was just putting in the reps. Yeah. Honestly, there's no other way. You can't read about this thing and you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to go on stage. I've read, how to kind of handle the stage fright. You just have to do it. So I just really, immersed myself into being the speaker. I had sweat rolling down my back. I'm like, oh my God, I hope nobody can see. I was nervous, right? But there's just something about once you get going and you just start talking, and it's all authentic, right? You're telling your story. I'm talking about, wholesaling. I'm an expert at that. And it really just flowed. And though I couldn't tell in the moment, I'm like, oh my God, they can definitely tell I was nervous. I'd come off and they're like, you did great. I'm like, I did? You can tell. I was sweating up there. And they're like, no, you rocked it. So it really just comes down to putting in those reps. I think most things, you can't get around that. So it was just exposure.
Courage builds confidence.
It's so true.
That's all it is. You just got to put yourself there. Same thing with me. I hated being on stage. I hated being the one up there where people were listening to me talk. And I'm like, but that guy or that girl, she knows more than I do. And how are they going to listen to me? But I think if you're there to share your journey and even if you just impact one person, I think if you kind of keep that in your mind that even if there's 50 people here or 500 people, if I can just change one person's life, I think that's a good way to help conquer that fear. But it's just courage. You got to build that courage up. Yeah. And then you can refine it by 10,000 hours. That's the only way to refine it.
Exactly. You're going to be uncomfortable, but you'll start to find comfort in that uncomfortability. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What was one of the best days that you've ever had and one of the worst days you've ever had, and how did you deal with it?
One of the best days, I'm going to say wholesaling probably 2 deals in one day. I was this is crazy. So I always had this mentality when I got started. I was like, you know what? I'm never going to put out more than one deal at a time, because I know human nature. It's like, which one should I take, right? You have too many options. You're going to take nothing. But in this instance, we just, kind of pushed them both out, a couple hours separate, but still in the same day. And they were both assigned in the same day. And for me, I was like, it was a limiting belief. I think that's what I'm most excited about. I love when I challenge myself and then I prove that, it really was just all in my head. So for me, definitely one of the best. One of the worst would probably have been, maybe a couple years ago. And I was just like, what's next for me? And I always know what's next for me. Like as a kid, I knew I always had goals. So I don't really relate to people who are just like, I don't know, I'm just floating around. I'm like, oh my God, I'm scared for you. I need to know where am I going? So to be in a space where you're unsure, was, I don't want to say depressing, but it made me feel low, right? Because people are like, wow, this big wholesale queen. And I'm like, okay, but like I've been doing it. Like I'm bigger than that. I'm more than that. I want to continue to grow. So I think that was a lower point for me, or more so, just I wasn't, I think mentally, doing well, because I was just uncertain.
Would you say that you kind of went into a bit of a depression? Or?
I think so, a bit. And I was like, okay. And it's weird because then you go into a room and everyone's like, oh my God, there. But they just don't really, no one knows what you're dealing with when it's just you by yourself, right? So yes, I'm happy. I don't have to go to my job each day. So that, brings me some fulfillment. But I'm also now like, what's next, Thea? And that was kind of terrifying for me until, I met my partner I was hosting my first real estate boot camp, actually my wholesale boot camp. And I was nervous, obviously. I'm like, oh my God, thank God I had, Alfonso there as well, but still nervous all the same. And, I met her and we kind of hit it off, and, like just having conversations with her, she was like reinstilling the drive and the passion that I had even for wholesaling, right? Because I was like, oh, okay, I'm over. Like I just want to do more things now, So for me, it was that, but finding someone who shares my passion as far as real estate, being an entrepreneur, these are all things that I was kind of looking for in a person, and I think she came like right on time and helped me refine my passion and just keep going. I think everybody needs that, to have that supportive person who can also relate, because if you're, gung-ho about being an entrepreneur and they're more like gung-ho about the 9 to 5, there's going to be some clashing, so for me, it was perfect. And I know I joke and say, Alfonso says, you always get the girl from the stage, and then it's true. Yeah. You do get the girl from the stage. But yeah.
Thea, listen, what an incredible story. I'm glad that you're here sitting across the table with me again to talk about your journey. And it's been great watching you do this. I remember when I first asked you to come and do this, and you're like, what? I'm on Gary's Real Talk with Gary. And now look at you. Now, it's incredible. And I've been watching you, and it's impressive. And to see you on stage and to touch so many different lives that you have already. I think you've got a lot more to give and to share. And so I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for sharing your story and your journey. And it's amazing to watch.
I appreciate that, Gary. Thank you so much for having me back. And I told you this before I got started. A friend of mine was like, you know what? You should listen to like Gary's podcast. I was like, who? Okay. So I'm in my car, I'm listening to it. So it again really is like this full circle moment, because I didn't have a deal done, not a wholesale deal. Like I was still learning what an ARV was, so to be here for the second time is truly a blessing, and I'm just so grateful. Thanks, Gary.
Oh, you're welcome. Any last words of advice or tips or strategies to the listeners?
Yeah, I would just say, go after whatever it is you want out of life. Life doesn't owe you anything. And I know sometimes we as people can feel like life does owe us something, but it truly doesn't. Get up every day and work for whatever it is you want. And I'm a believer of manifesting and just really putting those things out there. So if there is something you want, put it into the universe, speak it into existence. I remember, before really being an investor, I was at like a Friendsgiving. It was a friend's Thanksgiving. And they're like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, I'm an investor. I was so nervous. I'm like, I haven't done any deals. My friends are looking at me like, girl, what? But I stayed and I stayed true to it and continued each and every day. So I just want people to know whatever those dreams look like, they could look crazy to others, but if you're determined, you will get to it. So
awesome. Thea, thank you so much. If anyone wants to get in contact with you or do a deal with you, how do they do that?
Find me on Facebook at Thia R. Velinor or Instagram, Thia Velinor. Always looking to connect and see where we can create some synergy and grow together. So
awesome. Thea, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Gary.
Appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye.